Please welcome to the stage Coalition Media Group founder, chairman, and CEO, Troy Carter. And once again, Larry Platt.
Right there. All right. Sorry for the delay there. I couldn't get the governor to stop talking about James Harden.
I wanted to chime in so bad on that conversation.
So I am so honored to have Troy Carter here. Let me just give you a quick run through for those of you who don't know his story, which is fascinating. Like I said, he's the real Fresh Prince. West Philly, born and raised. His father in his adolescence doing time for murder. Troy drops out of West Philly High, gets stung with the rap virus, apprentices under DJ Jazzy Jeff and Will Smith, discovers Lady Gaga and manages her to superstardom, along with John Legend and Meghan Trainor, becomes a visionary venture capitalist, head of Spotify's global creative services, executor of Prince's creative estate. I don't know how you put all this stuff on a resume. Now sits at the forefront of the intersection of music and tech. And as if all of that weren't enough, he's become an outspoken proponent of school vouchers, which we'll get into. So, Troy, welcome. I'm honored to have you.
Thank you for having me. Good to be home.
So yeah, let's talk about your West Philly roots. Did rap music save you?
Yeah, music in general. You know, when I was coming up, I just turned 51. Hip hop just turned 50, so it was like we sort of grew up together. And but just the culture of it, and it was like the music that felt like we owned it versus music that was played in my household was mostly sort of gospel and oldies, and hip hop was something new and fresh. And I just fell in love with the culture and just wanted to be a part of it.
And then but school wasn't working for you, right?
No. I was, what's funny is like I was a person who was incredibly curious, but the way I learned, and I ended up, as I got older, I was diagnosed with ADHD, but back then they didn't diagnose you, you just couldn't sit still. But I ended up being a smart student, but I couldn't stay still. And so by the time I got to high school, I couldn't stay interested. I would cut school and actually go to the library sometimes at 52nd and Sansom and just like read books sometimes and cut in school. So it wasn't the fact that I didn't want to learn, it just wasn't the right environment for me. So I ended up dropping out of West in 11th grade.
And didn't you just like hang out outside the studio until Jeff took you in?
Well, my mom wouldn't let me. She basically took me to 46 and Market one day, and she signed me up for this program called Job Corps, which was like jail meets college. And she said, if you wanna do this music thing, you better come home with a piece of paper. And I ended up getting my GED, and that's when I sort of started stalking Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince, saying we need a record deal.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And then, so you go with those guys. You go out to LA. Your story, time and again, you've exhibited this stunning resilience after setback. I mean, you go out to LA, and James Lasseter is Will Smith's partner. And doesn't Lasseter send you back to Philly?
Yeah, James Lasseter, he's from Philly as well. He's still like my big brother and mentor to this day. But I was their assistant on this Hollywood lot in LA, and I was so he called me like the worst assistant of all time, and because we had the golf carts on the lot. And so I would take the golf cart and just go to the movie theater on the lot and watch a movie for a couple hours and then come back. And one day I came into the office and he fired me. He sent me back home to Philly. And it was just a super humbling experience because like I felt like I made it, and I was very embarrassed having to come back home sort of with my tail in between my legs. And it was a really good hard but good life lesson.
What was the lesson that you learned?
You know, Hugh, I think, one, we call it at my office, chop wood, carry water. It's like, do the work. You got to do the work, and you got to earn it. And that's the one thing I could say, like with Will and learning from him, it's like you have to put in the hours, you have to put in the effort, and you really have to show up. And some people just want the fame and the notoriety without actually doing the work. And I wanted to take those shortcuts and get to the title without actually doing the work. And he sent me back to Philly, and it was like that thing you feel in your stomach, and that got me to work.
And then how do you get from that to discovering Lady Gaga?
Well, I met an artist from Philly named Eve.
Sure.
And yeah. Yeah, we were just on text. I just wished her a happy birthday. Our birthdays are 4 days apart. But Eve is like, I met her when she was 16 at first at a little studio. And then a couple years later, somebody reintroduced us, and she had just gotten signed to Dr. Dre's label. And she ended up parting ways with her management company. And she asked me to help her find a deal and everything else. And I was trying to help her find a manager, and she said, "I want you to do it." And I had no clue how to be a manager, but she gave me the opportunity, and a real opportunity, and she trusted me, and we ended up, traveling the world, and she got a TV show and a clothing line, and me and my partner Jay Irvin, Julius Irvin III, we started a company. He signed a group called Flowetry. I signed Eve. Then we signed a bunch of Philly acts, and we sold that company to a company in the UK. And then they moved me to LA to open up their LA office, and that was sort of the transition.
It's amazing. But then you also had setbacks after that. There was a bad divorce from Lady Gaga where you sort of hit rock bottom. Is that right?
Well, Eve and I parted ways, and that's what when Eve and I parted ways. That was sort of the thing that caught me off guard, because I had sold the company and I was getting ready to start this new company, and I sort of bet all my chips on that. And when she came into my office, she said, I want to go in a different direction. I just was not prepared for it. And that would, you get these sort of life lessons as you go along, and I think the resilience part you talked about is. I think my mom was a single mom, and we didn't have much coming up or anything like that. And she literally got up to work 5:30 a.m. every day for almost 30 years at CHOP. She worked at CHOP, and it was no excuses in our house, So it's like and when we would stay with my grandmother at times, and you had to get up and you had to pretend you were looking for a job if you didn't have a job. So you didn't sleep in or anything like that. So I never had plan Bs, and so whenever something went wrong, I had to figure out how to make it right. And I think the difference now, from a perspective, because when you're looking through the rearview mirror now, things look different, but before it was, why is this happening to me? The sort of like, woe is me sort of thing. And what I learned, though, is like, how do you find, what is the opportunity in that? Like, because, for me, the universe will just rip the rug from under me. But I'm like, okay, which direction am I supposed to be moving? So instead of swimming against the tide, how do I swim along with the tide?
The other thing that's clear from your long CV is that you have some talent, some mysterious talent for figuring out or for sensing what's next in the culture. I wonder where you're like one of those old, of yesteryear, the A&R guys who had their fingers on the pulse. I mean, you look at even beyond music, the fact that you've been you've anticipated the cultural stresses between music and tech, and have worked to bridge that gap with your work at Spotify and other. So, where does that come from? How does someone with how's this West Philly kid who dropped out of high school have this vision about the cultural zeitgeist?
We call it the West Philly Spidey sense. You know, it's paying attention. And so when I would go out on tour with artists, I would walk every venue. I would stand at the merchandise stands and in the lines with fans. If people are lined up outside the arena, I would wait outside the line in the arenas. I would watch what phones people are holding up when they're recording. Is paying attention to the smallest things. And with what I realized though, like with talent, from a musical talent standpoint, you could clearly recognize when somebody has talent. And then you can see this sort of star power in terms of like a presence. And then what I look for is, how can I see, like, what is their work ethic like? Because I can go into any Baptist church in Philly and probably find 25 women who sing just as good as Beyonce. Are they going to work as hard as Beyonce is the question. And, you know, so because that, you know, it's this work ethic to be an entertainer. And what I realized is picking entrepreneurs wasn't that different. So, you know, meeting the founder of like a Uber or Warby Parker and seeing, like, asking almost the same questions you would ask an artist and seeing what their vision is, what they went through. I like people with chips on their shoulders. Like, how do you balance out something to prove without being overly confident and cocky where you piss people off? And, you know, so it's just sort of balance, and then you pick. And, you know, I get it. Like, my thing is, as long as when I get it right, I really get it right, because you could get it wrong, because I still get it wrong a lot of times, by the way. I could bury those dogs easily so nobody see them. But when you get it right, you really, really get it right.
Well, give us the list of, you mentioned Warby Parker and Uber. There are a lot of, I mean, it's amazing. There are a lot of companies that you were an early stage investor in. Mm-hmm. What were some of them?
We did Dropbox, Spotify, Slack, Warby Parker, Uber, a bunch of them.
Yeah, no, and it's really interesting that you made this transition from, and what I hear you saying is that it's not that different from discovering and managing talent.
No, it's picking people. Like, you know, because honestly, I don't have, like, I know friends in the music business who, and those are the partners I depend on. Like, they can hear a record, they know how to make a good record great. They can hear things in a song that nobody else can hear. I cannot do that. That's not my talent by any means. So, like, musically, it's like, I can't dance, I can't sing, I don't play an instrument, you know, anything like that. But when it comes to people, I feel like just being able to connect with people and recognize talent in other people, whether that be, you know, executive talent or music talent or entrepreneurial talent, and then being able to put a battery in their backs and support them as much as possible.
And how did it come to pass that you became essentially, I don't know what the correct title is, but essentially the executor of Prince's creative estate, that the
it was
vault?
Super random. Like I only met Prince in passing one day out of my entire life, and like he didn't know me or anything like that. And I was at home one day, and a friend of mine who's an attorney called me up, and he said, "What do you think about being an entertainment advisor to Prince's estate? Would you be interested?" And I said, "Of course." He said, "Can you be in Minneapolis?" This was a Thursday. He said, "Can you be in Minneapolis to present to the executors on Tuesday?" So my kitchen over that weekend turned into like a Prince war room, listening to every song. And I did it for, 5 years. We just recently turned it over to his heirs, because it came out of probate. But, professionally, it just was a guy from West Philly. I grew up listening to Purple Rain, Kiss, Little Red Corvette, and going through Prince's vault and seeing, like his notes to him. So I'm luckiest person on the planet.
I saw the 60 Minutes when you were in the vault, and the vault and a lot of that stuff is still yet to see the light of day, right?
Oh yeah, it's like it'll be if they put out 2 or 3 albums a year now, it'll be multiple lifetimes, before you get all that music out.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how good is it?
It is so good. It's like it's scary how prolific he was.
So the stuff that's left was not his throwaways.
Just to put it in perspective, Larry, it was because he recorded over 40 years, or so he had formats on like every kind of recording device. So it was things that we would have to go back and listen to from start to finish because, you couldn't skip through stuff or whatever. And finding like the original version of Nothing Compares with him singing it, is like, we didn't know that existed. Like you knew he wrote it, but
Right.
he wrote it for a group that was on his label called The Family. But when we heard that version, we're like, we got to put this out. And then, okay, well, let's find every version of songs that Prince wrote for other people, and then we put that album out as like the originals. Yeah,
That's fascinating. I can't wait to hear more Prince.
is an incredible.
Let's get to your latest. I don't know if you want to call it an obsession, but you were really this last election. You were really outspoken in activism for school vouchers. And first of all, where does that interest come from? I assume from your own experience in school, and also I know that you've toured some Philadelphia schools. So give me the genesis of that.
Yeah, I've been civically involved for years. Just in terms of national elections, local elections, like mostly this stuff. I haven't lived in Philly in a while, so I haven't been engaged in local politics here. And education's always been a huge thing. And when I was I'm like, we got so many. It's sad what's happening in the city right now, just to be honest with you. Like, and all my family's still here. Like, my entire family is still in Philadelphia. So I got a ton of cousins and nieces, nephews, you name them, that live in the city. Some of them go to these schools that we're talking about. And I thought it was a perfect solution in terms of, being able to give people access to, if you're in a failing school, how do you give people access to go to a private school, Catholic school, whatever else? It just seemed like a no-brainer. And when I was coming up, my mom got a chance to send me to Job Corps. She made $30,000 a year, by the way. And that was, probably at the height. And, we were coming up during the crack epidemic, as it was really, really hitting Philly, and a lot of violence, everything else. So, and my younger cousin, who me and him were like this, he got killed around the corner from my grandmother's house. And so my mom basically she put me in Job Corps. My other brother went into the Marines, and then my other brother went to a school for veterans kids in Pennsylvania. But it was, government programs that, she couldn't afford to put us in, in private boarding schools or anything like that to get us off the streets. So when I look at opportunities like this, it's part of what can solve the problem. And to put it in perspective, I know a lot of people are just, school choice nuts. I don't care.
Yeah.
I just want solutions. So whether that's public school, private school, vouchers, you name it, I want more funding for public schools. I want to fix the public school system. But by the way, it's kids who need to get out right now. Every single year is somebody's life. Every single year. So if we look at the state of this city right now and where we are, none of the politicians who vote against this send their kids to these failing schools. Not one. Not one. They don't listen to their and then, I get this feedback.
Yeah.
Now, and it's unfair because some of them actually send their kids to some of the best schools, by the way, like really great schools. And I'm a person, by the way, I got 3 kids that graduated from public school. I got 1 kid in public school right now. So it's like, to me, it doesn't, I live in a zip code where I could send my kids to a great public school and they could get a great education. It's unfair for parents to be stuck in these situations, for them to actually have access. I'm not even saying this because he was just here. Like, I didn't know a lot about Governor Shapiro before getting involved in this, and I'm like, to have a Democratic governor, the only one in the country, by the way, that's publicly supported this, I'm like, okay. And you got a Democratic House, and most of these people who I talk to, their districts are the ones with the failing schools, and they won't vote for it. They won't support it.
Yeah, it's really interesting, right? I mean, public opinion polls show that 70% of African Americans support some form of school choice because so many are stuck in a failing school system. And here in Philadelphia, it's, It's 28% of third graders are reading at grade level. And for me, I don't know if it's vouchers, but for me, and I don't think there is a silver bullet, but for me, we just need a sense of urgency. Yes, what I like about watching your Twitter feed on all this stuff was there was a sense of urgency.
You know what? The best disinfectant is sunlight, right? And a lot of I gotta be straight. It's like a lot of these people don't deserve even to be in office. I'm just being honest with you.
Preach.
And reason being, what's happening in these neighborhoods. You know what's happening. When kids educated kids don't want to kill people. They don't want to rob people. But when you don't have any hope, you don't have any opportunity, this becomes your life, guess what? What you see is what you get. So if we really, really want to solve the problem, we got to start there. And I'm like, we were talking about for the vouchers, it's only $100 million. That's a drop in the bucket to try to solve it. Even if it doesn't work, by the way. We got to try everything. Because what people don't realize is actual lives attached to it. Mark my words, because this is happening all across the country. This is going to become a national security issue, because everything that we're seeing now on the news with the smash and grab robberies, the everything, the Wawas and everything here, or whatever. I live in LA. You used to see Compton, South Central have certain things happen there. That's crept into Brentwood, Beverly Hills, all of those neighborhoods now, whatever. It is going to get scary. It's going to get really scary. And so if we don't make these investments, and even for our country, by the way, how are we going to compete with other countries in the future if we're not investing in education?
That's right. Yeah. I've written about this, and what frustrates me is we say, the politicians you're talking about, and a lot of us say we care about kids. But I looked exhaustively for a school superintendent who has been fired for not educating kids, and I couldn't find one in the country. I've seen superintendents fired for financial improprieties and sexual scandal, but not for simply not educating kids.
It's completely unfair, though, and you're talking to somebody who I'm a novice in this space, and it's people who have been doing this for years. So I'm just coming into it just from a common sense standpoint, and when I look at and I'm just being straight. they're beholden to the teachers union, like, period. I don't think the teachers, there are incredible teachers out there. My kids' teachers have been amazing. We're personal friends with them, come over to our house and eat and everything. And it's like, then on the other side of it, you got, if we know the data doesn't lie, we know what the results are, and you got people, and people ask me, and I'm just being, I'm sorry for keep saying this, but I got but I'm like, somebody asked, they said, Troy, why have you been so focused on certain black politicians? I said, because they know. They know. Like, because it's, other people might see the data or whatever, but these people actually know. You went to Bartram. You grew up in my neighborhood. You know. You actually know. You see it every day, and you won't do anything about it. So that's why, I'm calling out these, specific people or whatever. Because, I was brought up in my household with my grandmother, who, up until she had dementia recently, she would always ask all of the grandkids and her kids, "Did you guys vote?" And in our households, you just would pull down whatever the Democratic lever is. It doesn't matter. You just Democratic lever, and then you get familiar names that's on the ballot, that's been on the ballot for however many years, and you just know that's who you're going to vote for or whatever. People got to be held responsible. Nobody runs against these people. They're not. So they take for granted the fact that they know they don't have to do anything for these communities. They get them darn backpacks and turkeys and it's the mind game. No, give them opportunity. Give them opportunity. And you got voting blocks. You got blocks that are organized, and that's what angers me is seeing my people who came up in my neighborhoods who get into these seats and don't do what they're supposed to do when they're supposed to do it.
That's really powerful. Yeah. What kind of have you gotten backlash to your outspokenness?
Of course, they hate me. They're probably waiting outside for me.
In what form? And have you?
Yeah, you know what? I'm not being facetious either, because it's like I don't have a. It's not. I'm not coming trying to get a permit for a building or build real estate or get friendly with unions or anything like that. I don't care. I'm going home after this. So I'm not asking for anything in return. So it's like I think they're used to showing up for some sort of exchange, and so the conversations have just been blunt. And I ask blunt questions just to kind of get to to understand why they're not doing certain things. And what it boils down to is everybody behind the scenes is probably nobody who I've talked to that really didn't support this. People actually know that it's the right thing. They're not doing it for political reasons or for retribution, or they're scared that they're going to get primary. They're scared that they're not going to get money from this person. It's all of these reasons have nothing to do with those kids that they're supposed to be representing. Yeah. People told me that where they send their kids. By the way.
That's an interesting argument. I wonder, we're getting to the end here, and all of the music that you've put into the world is so uplifting.
Not all of it.
So I want to end on what can we give these folks in terms of hope? Because you've cited the statistics about education in Philadelphia and nationally, and we're even compared to other countries, we're sliding way behind. But what is there? What hope do you have for the future?
Yeah, you know what? For me, I'm definitely an optimist. I think the more it's about modeling at the end of the day. I got lucky enough to meet, Will and Jeff and JL in the beginning, and sort of modeled my life and like my career, and they showed me as a path out. We just got to give people just glimmers of light here, just little glimmers here and there, But for kids from my neighborhood and grew up the way I grew up, I would say is absolutely nothing that you can't do. What I would say to people in this room, because there's a ton of influence in this room, is don't judge books by their cover, and being like, if you could give somebody who may not, like, I don't even for venture, like I didn't go to Harvard or Yale or Penn or any of these schools or whatever, and I was a terrible math student. As a manager, I just knew 20% of everything because that's how I got paid. So I know I'm really good at percentages, but being able to see potential in people that may not learn the way other people might learn, or may not look the part or whatever. How do we invest in people who might not look the part and give them some opportunity?
And you've used the word opportunity over and over again, which I think is no mistake. I mean, you are a evangelist for opportunity, and part of that means sort of widening the aperture of our lens for the messages we send about what's possible. Charles Barkley tells this story about that when he speaks to a white high school, he always asks, who in here wants to be a basketball player, and no hands go up? Who in here wants to be a doctor and a lawyer, and every hand goes up? And when he goes to a inner city, predominantly black school, he asks the same set of questions, and everyone wants to be a basketball player or a rap star. So part of it is a media, a mea culpa, those of us in the media, a media message about the opportunities that are out there. And you were lucky, right? You were one of the few who figured out this way.
And you know what? One of the things I had to get over was like, because I would go into, especially when I started investing, and I would go to Silicon Valley. Literally, it was like 99% of the rooms, I was the only black person in the room. And when I started managing Gaga, like it was, because up until that point, most of the artists I managed were hip hop artists, and it was a predominantly black culture. And when I started managing Gaga, it was like a whole different world opened up. And in rock and pop music, I was probably one of 2 or 3 black managers of like big pop stars or whatever. And being able to have confidence going into the room, and to be able to not let, like in my household, I do not allow my kids to use race as an excuse. It's a big thing in my house. It's like, yes, racism exists. It is not an excuse. So because I want to give them the confidence that you can accomplish anything, and you could be in any room or whatever, but it takes a lot if you're coming from some of the neighborhoods or whatever, and you got people around you from some of the best schools, and you're at the table, getting people to, like, I coach a lot of kids in corporate America, and like getting them to advocate for themselves, getting them to feel confident in the room, like it is. So getting to the table is not the only part. It's like staying at the table and excelling in the room.
Well, I can't. Yeah. Let's hear it for that. I can't thank you enough for being really a Philadelphia citizen and a citizen of the world. Your eloquent example is an inspiring way to end today's festivities.